Ooh.
And astonishing goal. That's the way to do it. Herrera. Ibrahimovic! With 3.5 minutes to play. Now Di Maria wants it back, gets it back. Fantastic.
That's the luck of the bounce off Gaston Ramirez. Top try! What a day this is turning out to be for Manchester United.
Mason Greenwood hits the spot.
In he goes towards Muriel. What a save, David De Gea. Brilliant save.
And James. Dream debut. Daniel James.
Hello and welcome back to the United Devils podcast. This week we will be looking at just how the season has been, highs and lows of this kind of rocky season, as you could think about it. When the season began, quite a few people were expecting it, United to be 10th place. It was supposed to be a transitional season. No one was expecting a lot. And obviously there were huge dips in form, especially around September and probably the early stages of October, and just little patches of poor form throughout the season. But there have also been some positive moments, and I think that sometimes gets stuck in a mire of negativity at times. But we're going to be having a look at that and judge the season as a whole. And today we have someone slightly different. We have Wesley.
I'm Wesley. I'm a massive United fan. I have been since roughly about 1993 now. Manchester United goes back in generations in my family. My father and my grandfather were both massive Manchester United fans. So I kind of fell into the love of the club. Fortunately, I fell into the love of the club at the right time. As you know, we've been very successful over the last 25 years or so, and I got to witness the very good times of the club. And yeah, so I own an Instagram fan page called United Captured, which is very well known across the globe. We have some great support on that page, and we've got some great fans on there as well. And I just love supporting this football club. And if we can get the season back up and running, great. If not, we got to think about the overall picture, and it's people's safety at the end of the day. That's a little bit about myself in a nutshell. I love my club, and if any of you follow me on Twitter, you'll know how much I love this football club.
Quite right, yeah. Of course, the last 25 years United have been successful, and obviously the last 7 years not so much. This season was we've had some good moments, some really good moments, especially in 2020, especially the last couple months. But there have been some pretty bad moments in the last 7 years, and especially this season as a whole. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So I've asked Wesley to come up with his 5 highs and 5 lows of the season. And in an idea, sort of in a way to end on a high note, let's start with the low notes, I guess. So your top 5 worst moments of the season.
It's one of those things, really, because at the moment, and I have been since the get-go, the manager has got my full support and, my backing, because I really do believe in, his vision and what he's trying to do at the club. And unfortunately, we have endured some not so good moments this season. Obviously, that is going to happen when, you are finally doing, a rebuild within the club, because, over the years, we've not as such rebuilt. We've kind of papered over the cracks with Galactico sign-ins that haven't worked. I don't believe there's been an overall vision of, an end product of what United envisaged at that point. But I do believe now that the penny has dropped. You've got the likes of Newcastle United, who are potentially going to have a takeover, who are probably going to be serious contenders if that goes through in the next few years. So I do believe that the club now are going in a different direction. But yeah, the 5 lows, the first one for me, if I take you back to the beginning of the season, because after obviously the 4-0 victory against Chelsea, to lose 2-1 at home to Crystal Palace, that for me, that's right up there. And we didn't play particularly well on the day. We did create some chances, but we weren't clinical. And at that point, I kind of thought, well, are we back where we were? Are we, where it made me wonder where we are actually at that point. I didn't see the vision at that time, because there were still things going on in the club upstairs, and with various different players and whatnot still at the club. But for me, certainly that would be my first pick of worst moments during this campaign. So yeah, that's my first one.
There were a few things that were kind of at play there, especially behind the scenes. But before we get to that point, obviously the first goal was poor kind of communication between Lindelof and Maguire.
Yeah.
The poor finishing, the penalty issue again. Then you've got Dan James celebrating an equaliser in the 89th minute, and people taking offence to that, and then caps all off another De Gea mistake. I say another De Gea mistake like he's made loads. I mean, in the last few months, but it was a pretty woeful game. What were your kind of immediate thoughts, just in general, about the club and what you thought about our season going on?
Well, I was disappointed, obviously, because I always am when we don't pick up 3 points. Even when we draw, for me, it's not. I always want to win. At that point, I was disappointed, but we got new players in the side. I do understand that we should be winning those games at home without question. It was a massive kick in the teeth, but when you've got obviously social media power such as Twitter and Facebook, Manchester United, they're the probably one of the, if not the most followed club on social media, and it goes with the territory when you're the biggest football club in the world. People are always gonna talk down players and overreact to situations such as a missed penalty or caught in the moment scoring one of your first goals for Manchester United. But my overall feeling at that point, I did question the direction that we're going in, but it didn't make me think that the club is down and that we're in real bad territory. I thought that okay, it's one game, it's the beginning of the season, we've got plenty of time to put it right. Problem is we didn't necessarily put it right after those games. We went on quite a poor run of form, and we did struggle. But after that game, I didn't overthink it too much. I think the feeling got worse as it went on. Mm-hmm. But I'd probably say that in recent times, say the last couple of months, I've begun to realise, and that I think a lot of people have it as well, that this is going to take time to get to where we want to be. There is a vision, and I'm sure that a lot more people now back the manager than they did after the Crystal Palace game.
There were always going to be doubts coming into this season, especially on the back of what was pretty bad, awful, in fact, run of form. I mean, just that 4-0 against Everton was really kind of summed up where United were at that point.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because obviously, sorry to interrupt you there, no but like the 4-0 defeat against Everton, if you recall when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said, there's a lot of these players that are not in my plans and that won't be at Manchester United next season. And, he has stuck to that. He has, loaned at the likes of Alexis Sanchez, loaned at the likes of Chris Smalling. Okay, we do still have, some deadwood at the club. However, Young is gone. Romelu Lukaku is gone. There has been an overhaul of players that have been pushed out, and he has stuck to his word. And, when he did say that, I did think, well, do you have the cojones to actually do it? It's all very well, telling us, but he has. And, when you're getting rid of 5 or 6 players, it's not as easy to go and bring 5 or 6 players in straight away, and things aren't going to improve overnight because you're still going to have to build on what you've got. It's not as easy as just bringing in 5 or 6 and being instantly better. We have got the pull-in power and the finances, but I completely understand it. The board and and the manager, when he comes out and says that, you know, we can't just bring 5 or 6 players in, it's not, it doesn't work like that. Maybe it might work this summer, with obviously Ollie saying that he's looking to take advantage of or exploit other clubs due to the financial difficulty. But yeah, I mean, you know, that 4-0 defeat was a real kick at the backside, and I think that is probably the result that changed the way things are thought of around the club. I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and you could see it in his eyes after the game, when he did make that statement that, you know, that was it. A few players have played their last game. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah,
you know, that there have been questions raised over, well, especially the likes of Jones and Rojo still being left at the club. Obviously, Rojo went on loan in January and is unlikely to return. But Jones is still there. And so, you know, it does show that there are still things that people that need to be cut from the squad and people that need to be brought in to replace them, because obviously our squad depth isn't the best in the league. And so that is something we need to consider. But it looks like promises are going to be fulfilled in this summer. Let's hope that it's not those false promises we were expecting in the 2018 summer window when we were looking for Perisic, we were looking for Maguire, and nothing happened. Let's hope it's not a, you know, reiteration of the same sort of nonsense.
I completely agree with you. You know, I think that Manchester United is going to be more attractive now because, you know, than it was then, purely because of the reason that I do believe there's a plan, and I think Ollie would be able to sell his plan more than Jose Mourinho. Obviously, Jose, fantastic coach over the years, one of the best managers that's probably ever lived, and I have nothing but the utmost of respect for him. But you could see that he wasn't out of his depth at Manchester United, but I don't feel that he was trusted. And I think when you've got a manager like Jose Mourinho who constantly needs to spend and build on the project that he's envisaging, if he's not being given that, then it's going to be very difficult to sign the players that you want. And that's why I think that in the summer, you recall, obviously we wanted Morata, and then we ended up with Lukaku, and you know we had all of that issues with signing players. But now, obviously, it seems that Ollie seems to be getting his number one targets with Wan-Bissaka, Harry Maguire, 2 great signings who have instantly improved our defensive backline. For me, Harry Maguire is probably the most disrespected centre-back in the league, probably in the world as well, because I think that Harry is a fantastic defender, and he's not just a great defender, he's a great footballer technically. He's fantastic on the ball. He reads the game well. And Wan-Bissaka, for me, again, and I'm not just saying this in a biased way, I think he's the best right back in the Premier League. I think he's better than Trent, obviously. I think he's better than Pereira. This guy, Wan-Bissaka, is unbelievable. So, you know, we look back at the signings that Jose made. They were okay, but they didn't work out. Ollie seems to have got the right men and got the number one targets into the club. And, you know, I think that we're going in the right direction personally, and I really do think we're going to have a great summer this season.
Yeah. I mean, just sort of raising that point on Wan-Bissaka and Trent, I think it's quite clear that, one is better at one thing and the other is better at the other. Trent is a fantastic attacking fullback, and Wan-Bissaka is equally fantastic defensive fullback. And what I do think is I think that Wan-Bissaka will probably go further than Trent, just because it's easier to learn how to be more attacking and then also be able to track back than it is to be able to learn how to defend. Because you saw at Liverpool, they brought in a young attacking fullback, Alberto Moreno, and you would have thought they would have tried to get him to defend a bit more, and obviously it just didn't work. Only time will tell, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's carry on with our with the list. What's your second low point of the season?
So I'd have to say the West Ham game away.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those games. I mean, we always seem to struggle when we play West Ham away. There seems not kind of like not a block not a mental block, because there have been games where we have gone to obviously West Ham and we've got results and got some really good results over the years. But in recent times, West Ham just seems to be a bogey side, if you like, a bit like our Wolves. They're a bit of our kryptonite, if you like. But that game sticks out to me because we weren't in the game at all. We were very, very poor that day. And even the goal that we gave away, Mark Noble absolutely ran the show, and he shouldn't be running the show against Paul Pogba in midfield. And we should be comfortable. No disrespect, because obviously West Ham are, they're a decent side and they're in the Premier League and whatnot. But with Man United, we shouldn't be losing 2-0 away at West Ham, and not convincingly. And because there could have been more in that game. I just remember we got absolutely battered at London Stadium, and I look back on that game, and I think that is one that really, really hurt me.
Yeah, there were just points in the game where I kind of questioned. Obviously, you question tactics. You don't have to question faith in the manager, but you can question the tactics he's put in. And there were points where, Rashford wasn't getting into the game, and then he started playing Dan James up at striker. And I thought, the goals were there was questionable defending involved. I can't remember who gave away the foul for Cresswell's free kick, but it might have been Fred. But and then the free kick, De Gea got a hand on it as well. I love David De Gea, but that was a bad mistake, I think.
Yeah, it's a funny thing with David this season, because obviously, when we watch David, it seems like 90% isn't good enough. Because he's set the bar so high over the years. It's Absolutely. Kind of like you look at him and you think, wow, sometimes you go back 2 seasons ago and nobody was even near him in the world. David was just exceptional. And, I still believe in him. I still back him, and I still think he should be our number 1 goalkeeper. But I think that was the start to the confidence downfall with David De Gea this season, because he hasn't particularly looked comfortable in the sticks. But I also think that's a case of he's not used to not being busy, if that makes sense, because we've tightened up so well at the back that he's not getting as much traffic as he did when we had the likes of Smalling, Jones, Young, Valencia as a back 4. It's not as open, and he's not called into action every few minutes making, point-saving saves. But his confidence just doesn't look right at the moment. But that mistake that he made, I think, was the start to his confidence downfall, in my own opinion.
Yeah, there's this point that I think it was Paul Merson made, where he mentions the fact that De Gea's goalkeeping coach left in the summer. And that will obviously have an effect on any player, someone that you trust, someone that teaches you, coaches you, and that's going to be a big thing.
Yeah, massively. David got to choose in his previous contract. He got to choose who his goalkeeping coach was, and Emilio Alvarez was a well-known goalkeeper that David really, really did trust. But there were issues with Emilio's conduct, which ultimately cost him his job at Manchester United. I think with David's new goalkeeping coaches, when you change such a role, things will be done differently, and he might not adapt as well to them as he did to Emilio. It could be little things like that could be making the difference to his performances. But I think David will be professional enough to eventually grow out of that, and I think we will see the best of David De Gea again. It's just going to take time. I think that when anyone starts a new role or a new job, it's always going to take time just to find your feet again. And I think David might be just experiencing a bit of that as well at the moment. But obviously, I hold my hands up, and I think many fans do as well. We'll admit that David hasn't had the best of the season, but I think it's important that we stick with him at the moment.
Absolutely. He came up some amazing saves, especially against Man City in the Carabao Cup when we were fighting kind of to, keep in it in that sense. I mean, and even in the Premier League derby, he made some really good saves.
The shot across the keeper to his right, and he got down really good, didn't he? And managed to get it away from danger. And just point saving saves like that. David is still one of the best goalkeepers in the world, without an absolute doubt. And we're fortunate at the moment that we've got so many good goalkeepers on our books. It's nice to have a headache.
Absolutely, yes. Your third low of the season?
Yeah, so I would probably say my third low would probably be Aston Villa at home, 2-2. A game that I'd expected to win quite comfortably. That again ultimately turned into a complete disaster. I mean, Jack Grealish, fantastic player. You just knew that he was going to turn up on that day. He scored a fantastic goal, and we just seemed to struggle to get going. The thing I find with Manchester United over the years, over the recent years, is that in games like that, we struggle to capitalise on chances. We get chance after chance after chance after chance, and we just can't finish. And some goalkeepers turn up and they turn into prime Peter Schmeichel overnight. It's kind of like the whole situation with, I think it was Darren Randolph over the years. He used to come to Old Trafford and have an absolute stormer. He'd play against the lower leagues and he'd get absolutely slammed. But Aston Villa was a game that was another disaster for me. We didn't finish our chances, and we made mistakes, and it cost us. And again, it was I think it was a set piece that we conceded from. So we've struggled with set pieces this season. And obviously Harry Maguire on Sky Sports News the other day, it was an interesting watch. He obviously highlighted the issue with set pieces, and that's definitely an area that we do need to improve on. But Aston Villa game, man, that hurt. That really, really hurt.
Yeah, about the Aston Villa game, I think you said goalkeepers can turn into prime Peter Schmeichel. I mean, it was Tom Heaton again who stopped at Old Trafford for Burnley in Mourinho's first season, and did also concede an own goal, but I think that was more to do with Rashford, but nothing to do with him, which sort of seems a bit more like salt in the wounds, in the fact that even though we get another goal, and it would have taken Rashford to 20 goals for that season, it got chalked off, which is it's just another thing in that sense.
That's harsh. Definitely Rashford's goal. Harry Kane can claim that one goal. He claimed surely Marcus Rashford gets that one.
It's one of those things, I guess. I mean, to go on your point about the set pieces, obviously, I think until the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season, we did have the most number of goals conceded from set pieces, and obviously that was something about zonal marking was one of the things that was raised, and I just wanted your opinion on that.
I've played a little bit myself. My father used to play a professional standard as well, and I've always been coached into just pick up your man, go with your runners, and that's it. Zonal marking for me personally, because I think even if it worked, great. I mean, you can use it in specific games, but you can very, very easily get caught out. Fortunately, I think we've kind of been on the better end of it at the moment than we have done on the other side. The only issue I find is that when we're man marking, we're not getting the right men we're not matching them. So we've had, I think it was Brandon Williams was marking. Who was he marking? He was marking someone, and we conceded from a corner. I can't think of the top of my head. Van Dijk. So at Anfield, obviously the 2-0 loss. I have no idea why Brandon Williams was marking Virgil van Dijk. But whether or not he was told to by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, we don't know. But my personal opinion on zonal marking, I don't like it. I don't feel comfortable with it. And I think that your opposition will always have an advantage if you are zonal marking.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I was really rather unhappy with just the way it was. It just seems like it hasn't worked. The fact that I think Emery used it in his first season at the Emirates, and I mean, it just went really badly, and he changed the system the season after, and then he got sacked. So that is the other thing, is that then if Solskjaer does change his philosophy, does that sort of show him being sort of bent by the players' inabilities in that sense, or?
I wouldn't say so. No, I think that if he does change it, I mean, it would just prove that I think it would go in his favour as a manager. I think that managers should be able to adapt and should be able to coach different ways of playing. And that is one of the things that I really like about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, is that we seem to look comfortable at the moment in two different systems. You know, when we've played Man City, we've gone with 3 at the back. When we've played Chelsea, we've gone with 3 at the back, and then he changes it into a 4 at the back. You know, we're able to adapt to change, which is good. And I mean, if he was to change, you know, when we're defending set pieces, even if you use both, I mean, when you set up with zonal marking, it might be comfortable against, for example, a side like Chelsea. But then when you play a side like Burnley, who are much bigger, man marking might be more appropriate for that game. But I certainly think that, you know, if you're able to change between the two, it's definitely a good thing. And I wouldn't say that it would look bad on Solskjaer at all if he was to change, or, you know, from players' influence or whatnot. Because, you know, I think the players are professional enough just to allow the manager to do his job.
Yeah, you don't think that there are those kind of issues at all? I mean, obviously we've seen it down the years. Wayne Rooney, I think Juan Mata and Michael Carrick going into Van Gaal's office and saying we're playing too much boring football. Mourinho obviously having issues with players left, right, and centre. If the newspapers are to be believed, but you don't see that happening at all with Solskjaer.
I think that Ollie, because he knows the club. He knows the fans, and I think he's a fan himself. And I think that because of the most recent form, and, you know, the way that we're playing recently, and the form that we're playing well. We're 11 unbeaten. We've kept 9 clean sheets, etc. I don't think the players would be warranted to go and see him at the moment. Obviously, under the likes of Louis van Gaal, times were tough. The football was boring. And I think that, you know, Louis van Gaal is a very, very, very stubborn guy. You know, he would probably not pay any attention as to what the likes of me and you are saying. It probably took that kind of level of, you know, the likes of Wayne Rooney to go see him, to ask him to change it. It probably, you know, and even then, it didn't really change. Nothing did change. And that's why ultimately he did get the sack. But I mean, I don't see anything like that with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think that he'd know himself if he had to change anything. He's an intelligent guy, and he's only going to get better. And, you know, he's got my full backing.
Yeah, mine too. Obviously, you're going to have bad moments. I mean, you can't expect every team to win every game.
No.
I mean, no team in Premier League history has won every game. Only one team has not lost a whole season for a whole season. Yeah. So, I mean, there are going to be dips.
I'm not really shocked with this season. I mean, that we've had some really, you know, rocky results, but, you know, I don't think it's going to happen when you are rebuilding, because I know people have been talking about rebuilds for many and many years, but I think the rebuild has only just started, because you've had to clear out a load of players. You've had to invest in the right players, and I think that's what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is saying. When if the right players are available, we want to make sure they're right for the club, and that's absolutely right, because, you know, we've bought Di Maria. Di Maria wasn't right for Man United. You know, we had Falcao. Falcao was, you know, injury. He's rehabilitating at our club on loan, and it didn't work out. We've always seemed to lean towards Galacticos post Sir Alex Ferguson, and I don't know why these people are expecting, you know, still to sign your Galacticos, because Fergie, sorry, I don't like calling him Fergie. Sir Alex never, operated like that. It was kind of, he brought in players for a purpose and for a reason, and he always ensured that the right players were being bought for the club. They always fit into the system, and I just think that when we're plucking all these players out of here, mainly on social media and stuff, it's beggars belief, really. But with the rebuild starting now, which I do believe it is starting now, because I think there's been a sense of realization around the club. I think things are going to get better, and yeah, I'm quite optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, people expect sort of instant impact, and when you think about, it's not going to be the same because,
no,
I mean, you think about Sir Alex's kind of performances, but he never finished below third in the Premier League ever, and to get to that level again, there's going to have to be a whole overhaul.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what I mean by the sort of sense of realization around the club. I think that, things are changing now, hopefully, and there wasn't much ambition to be great again in previous seasons. I think it was just a case of paper over the cracks, we'll get through this. But now I think that because of things changing, particularly in the league with other teams strengthening, we've got no choice but to invest in the side. And I think that Ed Woodward has realised, if we're going on the reports of what is being reported online, I think that him taking a step back is a positive. There's no doubt that this man is, important to the club in the sense of commercial deals, because, he's managed to get the club some great deals over the years, but that is his area of expertise, and that is where he should stay. So whether or not we get a director of football in now, or whether or not he gives Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the responsibility of dealing with transfers himself, I don't know. I don't know what kind of direction we're going to take on that, but I'm quite optimistic that this coming pre-season we'll get the players we want again, even because we got Maguire, we got Wan-Bissaka. I'm optimistic that we'll get a few other top players as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Jack Grealish is one of the names has been, put about, as well as obviously Jadon Sancho, James Maddison, Thomas Partey, as well as Jude Bellingham, Birmingham City. Before we move on to the fourth one, I just want your kind of ideal summer window.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people want a top striker, and I understand that. I mean, Anthony Martial, obviously, you can look at Martial and you just know that he's got so much talent. I think that he frustrates a lot of people with maybe just his lack of enthusiasm when he's on a football pitch. But Anthony Martial has got all the ability in the world, and he's got all the potential to still become a top striker in the world. But personally, I wouldn't be looking at replacing him at the moment. I would persist with him for another season down the middle at least, because he's got 17 goals this season, playing as the number 9. He scored some really important goals for us, and I think other areas should be prioritised within the squad. So Jadon Sancho, right wing, it has to happen. I'm confident it'll happen. I think that is the kind of deal, touching on Ed Woodward, because he would have to ultimately sign off the transfer. He would still have responsibility for releasing the funds for that. But I think that Manchester United at all costs would just get Sancho in as quick as they could. As soon as the window opens, I don't think that they'll have any issue paying the asking price for Jadon. But he absolutely has to be, our top priority. For many seasons we've lacked on the right wing.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen that Wan-Bissaka loves going forward, and I mean, a lot of the time he's going forward on his own because we haven't got a natural right winger who's comfortable in that area. He's going down the right hand side, he's getting dispossessed, and then we get caught out at right back. Mm-hmm. It's happened a few times this season, but I think with someone like Jadon in front of Aaron, it would not force Aaron to keep going as far forward as he does, because when we have conceded goals from the right wing position, a lot of the time is when Aaron's been caught out on the attack and he hasn't been able to get back. But yeah, I mean, Jadon has to happen. Absolutely has to happen. That is the top priority. So yeah, one would be Sancho. I personally don't see Jack Grealish coming to Manchester United unless Paul Pogba is sold.
If you don't mind me interrupting, why don't you see Grealish coming unless Pogba leaves?
I just don't see us spending the amount of money unless Aston Villa were to go down and we were to get him at a reduced price. I just think the asking price would be too much. I'm not saying that Grealish isn't worth the asking price. I just think that when we've got Paul Pogba plays when he's fit, because there's no doubt that Paul Pogba is one of, if not on his day, the best midfield player in the world, and I'll stick by that. And I won't agree by with what everything that Paul's done, the way that he's handled all the situation with, talking to the media when, he was in Dubai, when he quoted that he wanted to leave and that he wanted a fresh challenge. I don't agree that he should have come out and said that, because he was still under contract at Manchester United. Paul's a great player, and if Grealish comes in, also we've got Bruno Fernandes and we've got Fred. I don't see Grealish starting, and I don't see spending 60-70 million pounds on a player who's going to sit on the bench. But I'm not saying that he's not a good player, because Grealish is a fantastic player. Obviously, there's been issues with his conduct very recently in regards to going out driving during the lockdown. But players make mistakes. It was obviously a stupid mistake that he did make and whatnot. However, if Pogba was to go, Grealish would be the player that I would bring. But yeah, I mean, I hope Pogba stays. I think that whatever team Paul Pogba plays for, they're getting a fantastic player. So yeah, I mean, I've said Sancho. I mean, we're always looking at a holding midfield player, and we've got fair play to Fred. I have to say, I mean, Fred for me has been our player of the season so far. I just think he looks reborn. He's been fantastic in big games. He's also been very good in not so big games. He's been consistent. He seems to have just refreshed and really looks like the player that we brought in now for the price tag that we did. Is he a natural defensive midfielder? No, but he's done a fantastic job there. And I mean, as the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I mean, what do? We've got Fosu Mensah, who's potentially signing a 1-year contract extension as well. Scott McTominay, who's available. Matic has signed a new extension on his contract. So we have got a lot of cover there. And I mean, we've been linked with Thomas Partey, who kind of looks like he's going to be going to Arsenal now, from what I've read today, with his father saying that Arsenal are very keen on him. But yeah, I mean, if I could bring in a defensive midfielder, I'd love to bring in Wilfred Ndidi.
Absolutely.
I'm a massive fan of Ndidi. I think he's a fantastic defensive midfield player. Reads the ball well, reads the game well, cuts the passing lines well, and he's technically a very good player. And he's 23, I think, as well.
Absolutely, but obviously you have that problem that it's going to be difficult for United to get players from. Well, it has been historically difficult for United to get players from other Premier League teams. It's cost an extra 15-20 million for Maguire, Wan-Bissaka. Obviously, Maddison's price tag is high. So do you think that it is morally okay for United to be taking advantage of the fact that probably price tags will go down, and there'll be one of apparently 3 Premier League clubs that are able to spend this summer?
I think that I don't see a problem with it, because I think that these clubs will need the money anyway, in terms of having to make up for the money that's lost due to the pandemic. And I mean, we've done some great work during this horrible situation. We've supported the NHS like no other. We've set an example for other teams. The Glazers I give them credit for not furloughing the staff and ensuring that they're going to be paid, and the players optimally willing to take a reduced salary and donating that to the NHS. So when it comes to morals at the moment, I don't see a problem with us doing that, because we're making up for possible negativity in other areas. I don't blame us for doing it, and I think that any other club in the same situation will do so.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, that's absolutely fair. It sort of, other clubs will obviously complain, but then I saw something this morning. Mark Goldbridge, I don't normally kind of heap praise on what he says, but he did make a good point that lower clubs have never had a problem with United or even City forking over an extra 15-20 million for their players. So when it's on the other side, it seems like it balances out in that sense.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Of course it does, yeah.
But let's move on to the number 4.
Yeah, so number 4 for me, most definitely Burnley. The Burnley game. I can't describe to you how I felt. Even during that game, I think that the goal in that game seemed to be coming. You could tell that Burnley were going to score, but I didn't expect to lose 2-0 in that game. And in the manner of what we lost, the way we played, that one really, really, really hurt.
We just played against Liverpool. How many days before? I think it was four days before, and Salah scored in the last minute, and that was horrible in its own sense, especially because we were fighting for the goal. And then this one, we come along, and it's 39 minutes of just sort of having possession but not using it. Same old kind of thing with United, and obviously we haven't had the best record at home to Burnley since they've been back in the Premier League, obviously. 2 Desmond draws and a 0-0 draw. And kind of almost expecting things to go wrong, especially when you have kind of, no disrespect, but especially when you have Phil Jones in that back 4, you don't expect kind of confidence to be at its utmost high. And the bench as well was quite poor. I mean, when you have 3 defenders on a bench, it shows how limited your squad depth is. I mean, it was that game, and the fact that, like you said, against the set pieces were kind of, they were dreadful. We conceded from one as well. And it was that game where I was, there was a bit of doubt creeping in as to what the plan was for going forward. Obviously, lack of players. McTominay was also unavailable, and that kind of showed in the midfield, because Matic wasn't at his best that game. He kind of got overran a bit at times, and it was that game that kind of really showed we need Bruno Fernandes. And then the next game he comes in, the next Premier League game anyway, he comes in, and there's a clear change. So it was a horrible result, and you kind of there was sort of an uproar at, especially on social media as well, just about how United actually were in that game, and it was just distressing at points. Yeah,
absolutely. I remember, that feeling so deflated. We've been quite unlucky in the sense of we've had a lot of injuries this season as well, and I mean, I think that the players were. I think at that point we were still sort of unsure of how we want to play, and I don't think that the plan was there from the beginning of the season. I think that the plan has only come to light very recently, in the sense of probably 11 games ago we tried something different and it's clicked and it's worked, and we've persisted with those tactics. And I mean, that result for me, it really, really, really hurt, and it didn't help with obviously the mistakes that were made and the players that were injured. I mean, Chris Wood's goal probably should never have happened in that game, and obviously again we had chances, but we weren't weren't clinical. We gave the ball away sloppy in midfield all game. I think that is one of the games that I think our midfield just weren't in the game at all. Kept giving the ball away, getting dispossessed, slow on the ball. But ball retention was poor all game. It was just you just knew that the game was going to go one way, and I remember thinking that there was a eerie feeling around Old Trafford during that game, and it was a very, very, very bad result.
If I remember correctly, there were people walking out in the 75th minute, and obviously the 2 seasons before we'd had late goals in both games, and so it just sort of almost exemplified the fact that there was sort of less hope at that point, and it was a pretty woeful moment, and especially because the players we brought on to kind of solve the game, obviously 18-year-old Mason Greenwood, he'd done very well, brought on at half time to make a difference, but an 18-year-old shouldn't have to be brought on to make a difference.
No, not at all.
And then obviously Luke Shaw and Jesse Lingard with 20 minutes to go isn't exactly what you'd call game winners, really. I mean, based on this season, it was really quite woeful, and especially the fact that we hadn't signed any. With the 22 days gone of January, we could have been readying targets. Obviously, Haaland had already gone to Dortmund.
Yeah.
Obviously, issues with Mino Raiola as his agent was, circulating that time as well. It was a bad point, and then we got over that point, but it sort of set us back quite a lot because. But let's conclude this. Look into the misery part of this season, and let's go for your final choice.
It has to be Marcus Rashford's injury. I firmly believe that had Rashford have not gotten injured, I do believe he would have had the Golden Boot this season. He's been absolutely phenomenal for us this season, and I was only watching his debut earlier on the telly, against his Premier League debut, and I look at him now. He's gone from a boy to a man, and he's playing so well. He's improved probably every season that he's played for us. He's had a lot of criticism over the years, but this season most definitely, I do believe he would have finished the Premier League's top goal scorer. And Marcus getting injured when he did, it was a massive blow. In the City game away at the Etihad when we played them and we won 2-1. I mean, Marcus Rashford absolutely tore Man City to pieces. I mean, that opening 25 minutes,
absolutely.
He missed a big chance, hit the crossbar. He just really tormented Man City, and Marcus getting injured is a game changer. Luckily, we didn't dip in form too much after that, and we have obviously had good recent form and some good results as well. But for me, that's the biggest one for the season is Marcus getting injured.
Yeah, the way he got injured as well was. I mean, it was almost disappointing. It was a replay in an FA Cup game, but it was disappointing in that sense. And then a player that was playing that well and is of that caliber would have had an impact.
Yeah, well, he's a game changer, isn't he? When Marcus is on the ball, people get off their seats, and it kind of reminds me this season in particular of when Cristiano Ronaldo was at Manchester United. Every time Rashford has the ball, you think something's going to happen. And he's got that little bit of magic in his locker as well that could win you a game, and not having that, particularly for that second leg. Although we won the game, I think if Rashford had been playing, we probably would have gone on and beaten Man City by 2 or 3 and got to the final and could have won the trophy.
I think, in a sense, the fact that they've postponed the season is almost a blessing in disguise, in the sense that we could have Pogba and Rashford back if the Premier League does resume. It will be, an interesting set of games, because obviously we have got on paper a good run-in, with only kind of Spurs being one of the top 6 sides we're playing. Obviously Sheffield United at home might be a difficult one, as they are going to park the bus and try and get what they can. But they're not, unbreakable. I mean, City and Liverpool have shown that. But just tracking back, I mean, obviously there were doubts over his ability during that spell when Martial was injured and he was playing as a striker and not scoring many goals. People were questioning whether he should actually be a striker or not. And I just wanted your take on what you thought about his dip of form this season.
Marcus Rashford's a left winger for me all day. He's not. I don't see him as an out-and-out striker or a number 9. I think that the reason that we lacked a lot of goals is, I think, because there was a lack of supply and a lack of good supply. I've seen in many games where Marcus has made some fantastic runs in behind, and the ball hasn't gone there. Now that we've got Bruno Fernandes obviously in the team, the ball's going to be moved a lot quicker. So in that period, we had the likes of Andreas Pereira, Jesse Lingard playing, players who are not technically good enough to probably spot these runs that Marcus is making off the ball. I think when you're a striker, you rely on your supply. If you haven't got any good supply, then you're going to struggle, and then you get caught out of position because you're going to go looking for the ball. You're going to try and make your own luck. You're going to start shooting from all different kinds of angles because as a striker, you're judged on your goals. You've got Premier League strikers like Harry Kane who can do the best of both. He can run off the ball, running behind, and he can drop deep, sort of like Wayne Rooney did back in the day. But Marcus Rashford, for me, if he's going to play as a number 9, he needs to have supply. If he has no supply, he's out the game, and I think that's why he struggled. But yeah, I mean, we got the supply now with Bruno. I think things will be different, and obviously we have seen things change since he signed. Scored a lot more goals.
Absolutely.
He's got a few assists. He's got a few goals himself. And I mean, I think Marcus Rashford is going to absolutely thrive off Bruno Fernandes when he eventually comes back. But Rashford has to play on the left-hand side.
I think you're right. When Rashford's got space, and I think he'll get more space on the wing than he will do up front for sure. He's just devastating. I think the fact that we haven't seen Rashford with Bruno, and that is just an exciting prospect. I think we're all really kind of waiting on the edge of our seats to see, and that's something we can't really say with confidence we've had consistently over the last 7 years. So it is exciting times, and on that note, we should move to the highs, highs this season, and let's get going with your list.
Yeah, well, first for me is first game of the season. I think that this kind of sold me a bit of false hope, in the sense of beating Chelsea 4-0 at Old Trafford. It's always nice to beat Chelsea, especially 4-0. That one in particular sticks out mainly because it was the first game of the season and mainly because of the result. I mean, everything seemed to go pretty well that day. I mean, possession-wise, I think Chelsea had more possession on the day, but we were just more clinical in front of goal. It was like everything that was hit towards the goal went in. It's just a shame that we didn't follow that game up with another win, but that's football, isn't it? But that's definitely my first high. First game of the season, you always look forward to, and winning 4-0 was a great result.
I mean, it really was. I mean, the first goal, obviously, I mean, it was a clear penalty. I think that's undeniable. One of many we've had this season. Obviously, they have missed 4, I believe. And I just wanted your opinion on that. Just why do you think that is? Do you think it's because it's obviously not because of biased VAR? There were no contentious decisions. They were all stonewall penalties.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just wanted your opinion on why we've been getting so many penalties this season.
I think it's a case of we're getting in the right areas. We've got to get in the areas in the box in order to get a penalty. So, we're getting in the right areas, which is a step in the right direction. And I mean, there's no excuse for giving a penalty away. I mean, if it's a penalty, it's a penalty. And if VAR says it's a penalty, it's a penalty. And, I'm not going to turn around and say, well, VAR shouldn't be in place because we're getting so many penalties or whatnot, because it's there to do a job. That's the job it's doing. If it's giving us penalties, that, as you said, they are Stonewall penalties, and that's it. I mean, VAR, like I said, is there to do a job, and I'm thankful it's there, because in most of those situations, the officials didn't pick those penalties, the challenges up, and it could be a case of if a penalty wasn't given, we could have lost out on points or whatnot. It could have made the season not as close as what it currently is. We're in a good position at the moment in the sense of looking at that top four space and closing the gap on Chelsea and Leicester. So yeah, I'm all for VAR. I do think they need to refine it in some areas, but in our instance, I'm just grateful that it was there to pick up the decisions that were missed by the referee. The penalty against Man City was an absolute Stonewall penalty. Yet, official Mike Dean didn't see it, and had to bring it back. And I mean, it's worrying that officials are even missing easy decisions. Yeah. But, and even like in the home game, Fred was brought down and booked for diving, when in actual fact it was a Stonewall penalty. I mean, I don't understand it sometimes. I think VAR needs to be refined, and they need to be able to implement that monitor, that pitch side monitor. If the officials are unsure. Because again, Fred brought down and booked for diving. Do you remember that?
I do, yes.
But it was a penalty, and it wasn't given. But I mean, VAR should have intervened and given us another penalty.
One of the problems with VAR is obviously the consistency. I mean, you can talk about the penalties as well. I mean, decisions for penalties. What's too much of a touch? What's not enough contact? What's a significant amount of error in the decision? But then there's also the things like the decision in the Everton game when Calvert-Lewin, or rather Victor Lindelof, conceded an own goal, and Calvert-Lewin's elbow was in De Gea's face.
Yeah.
And that was not given as a foul. But then in the Anfield game, Van Dijk, turns his back and backs into De Gea and knocks him over as well, and that was given. So that there are things that need to be ironed out. But did you always expect that there would be those kind of problems with the first season?
I expected minor errors, but I didn't expect as many as what we've had. I think there's been a lot of teams unfortunate in, being on the wrong end of VAR. I think ultimately the offside one is causing the most issues within the Premier League at the moment, the offside side of VAR. But I think the Premier League potentially rushed implementing the system based on pressure, and other leagues already implementing it. But we use VAR a lot differently to European leagues. I think when you have VAR, you all need to use it the same. In the sense of you have a pitch side monitor, and if the referee is unsure, then the referee can go and see the monitor and make a decision there, and then it shouldn't be taken out of his hands by another official and whatnot. But again, I didn't see VAR being as much as a disruption as it has, but ultimately we've benefited greatly from having the system, but rightly so. I don't think we've been awarded anything unjustifiably. I think that everything that we've had, we've warranted, because it's been blatantly obvious.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think. But shall we continue to your second point?
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to go with the Carabao Cup game against Chelsea. It was nice to see Brandon Williams play. He had a great game. He roughed a few people up. we also played with obviously the three at the back as well. And I mean, I think that was the first time we saw three at the back this season. And Marcus scored a fantastic goal. I'd probably say it's goal of the season for me so far this season.
Absolutely.
You know, and it was a good result. As I said, you know, it's always nice to beat Chelsea. Although it was, you know, a Carabao Cup game, both sides fielded, you know, pretty strong teams. And yeah, I felt really good after that game because I felt, you know, it was another step in the right direction. And finally, Marcus Rashford scored a fantastic free kick.
After all the attempts he's had, it's sort of, it's kind of a bit like, I mean, the way he took it, I think most people were thinking, don't shoot, put it in the box. We've got our big men forward and that kind of thing. But with that kind of straight free kick, you really have very few options, especially when you don't have the quality of delivery as well. So, I mean, it caught me off guard completely. I was so shocked he managed to score it. I think most people were, but it was absolutely magnificent, and obviously being likened to Ronaldo's strike against Portsmouth. But I mean, it showed that he was sort of back in that sense because he had that drought, obviously. Then he scored against Liverpool, and he just kept scoring. Yeah,
definitely. It's definitely the. I mean, I was actually at Old Trafford for Ronaldo with his free kick against Portsmouth.
Oh wow!
But the one that Rashford scored against Chelsea is probably the best free kick that I've seen for Manchester United. It was absolutely incredible.
I mean, it just was. I mean, the way it dipped and it just started off so high and just went straight back down like a meteor. It was amazing.
There was a brilliant shot of Dan James in the background with his hands on his face. And Martial turned around and just stared at Rashford, thinking, "What have you just done?" Like, phenomenal, unbelievable, such an iconic moment.
Absolutely, and the fact is that then Solskjaer had done, you could say, the double over Chelsea, and it was still yet to lose to the Blues, especially after the kind of pretty awful run United have had under Sir Alex, under Louis van Gaal, even under Jose Mourinho against Chelsea. I mean, obviously it started to get better. Mourinho winning, both home games. In the home game in the 16-17 and 17-18 season, but the 4-0 loss at Stamford Bridge in the early stages it was dreadful. But I mean, it shows a bit of exercising demons in that sense that we did get 2 wins against Chelsea in one season, which is shocking.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the moment we seem to. The problem isn't beating the top 6. It seems to just be picking up results against the lower teams, and the kryptonite for us is when teams sit back against us. We do struggle. And I mean, with Bruno coming in, and obviously with Pogba hopefully coming back as well, it might give us a better chance of against teams that do sit back against us, because that is our kryptonite. We even go away from home, teams sit back against us. When we played Bournemouth away, Callum Wilson scored, and then this in the first 15 minutes, and then they sat back for the next 75 or 60. Do you know what I mean? It's it's tough, really. But doing double over Chelsea, we've beaten Man City 3 times this season. We've beaten Spurs. We've had some very, very good results, and it's a lot of positivity, a lot of positivity, a lot of positive stuff to build on. Great results. I feel that the team are going in the right direction, and I feel that now whenever we do play, bigger opposition, I'm not phased. I do tend to worry about playing the lesser opposition more, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, Chelsea in the Carabao Cup, I think that was the start of things sort of turning on their head a little bit. We started to go around that corner. That was the start.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think it is the lower teams that we've obviously had problems with, not just this season, last season as well, and probably the season before at times. especially that run of 3 draws against Crystal Palace, Burnley, Leicester, and Southampton in December 2017. I mean, that kind of gave Man City points, as we were kind of hoping to kind of close in more on the big gap they'd already formed.
Yeah.
So it was that point. But I mean, like you said, the last sort of few games, I mean, against the big teams, we've performed really well. One of 2 teams this season that have actually taken points off Liverpool, which obviously rather have had the win at Old Trafford, and it was that one defensive error that cost us the equaliser. But it is sort of, you can put that there, that it's you never really want to be in the same sort of category as Watford, but I mean, when we find ourselves there, I guess. But let's push on to your third high point of the season.
Yeah. So again, I mean, Manchester City away 2-1. I think arguably the first half was probably the best first half of football that we've played in a very, 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 very long time. As soon as we kicked off, we looked like scoring. We just absolutely battered Man City. Rashford, even Dan James, Martial, they just, on the counter-attack, Man City just couldn't live with us. And, I remember the opening few minutes where, Rashford, there was a ball crossed across the box, pulled back from Dan James, and Rashford put it wide. He also hit the crossbar. The penalty, Stonewall penalty, Rashford, cool, calm, collected, slotted it away, sent Ederson the wrong way. And then obviously Martial's goal as well. Dan James had, a lot of involvement in that, but it was just wave after wave after wave after wave. And I remember I was sat there and I was thinking, man, I haven't seen us dominate City like this for a very long time. And again, I thought, we're going in the right direction here, and Man City just could not live with us in that first half. Absolutely could not live with us. Second half was a little bit different. Obviously, Man City were more involved in the game and eventually got a goal. But yeah, I mean, the boys were unbelievable first half, and that was a massive result for us. And yeah, what a game!
Yeah, I can't disagree at all. I mean, the fact that every player put in a 10 out of 10 performance in attack in the first half, and even they put in even more effort, if possible, in defending in the second half. I mean, even you mentioned Rashford, Martial, Dan James, but Jesse Lingard as well. He actually had a good game.
I think that was brilliant.
Shocking as it might sound. And Fred, I mean, he'd obviously had grown a bit more when Pogba got injured and came into the side, but there had been dips in form. But that game, he really, really shone. I think that was when he really started to become the player that has ended this part of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've never ever really seen what Raheem Sterling as pocketed as he was in that game. I mean, Wan-Bissaka really has Sterling's number. If I was Raheem Sterling, I wouldn't want to play Wan-Bissaka ever again.
There were obviously in the reverse fixture at Old Trafford, I mean, it was the same old in that sense. I mean, there was something said at the end of that game by Jamie Carragher saying that Sterling should swap wings and try someone with, I don't know, a bit more technical ability, but you don't really find that many people that are more technical than Sterling, even though he has got the pace. He's a very good dribbler. What do you do? What would, if you were the opposition manager, what would you do if you were facing Wan-Bissaka? What would you do with your wingers?
I'd probably only target the other side. I would honestly, I probably wouldn't, because he's that good. I would probably try and target Luke Shaw more than Wan-Bissaka, and I think that's what a lot of teams have done this season, is that they've not really fancied the left-hand side. I noticed that Wolves, when we played Wolverhampton, everything for Wolves went down the left-hand side. because even Luke Shaw's been fantastic as of late. You know, he's really started to play well and defend well, and it's nice to see Luke, you know, really back to hopefully his best again. You know, because he's had a really rough few seasons at the club. He's been unlucky with injuries, and you know, he's had the various different kinds of treatment from different managers. But yeah, I mean, it would just be a case of just go down the left-hand side. Don't worry about the right side, you know. And obviously, clubs know that Wan-Bissaka he's good going forwards. He's obviously not as good as Trent going forward. But clubs would know that if Wan-Bissaka does go forward, then they'll deal with it ultimately. They'd rather go down the left-hand side, I'd imagine. A lot of sides have done this season so far. They've sort of seen that as our weakness. But now that Luke Shaw is playing well, I think it's going to tighten up even more, and it's going to give sides even more of a headache when it comes to tactics against us.
So you do see Luke Shaw being the starting left back. Obviously, there have been names like Alex Telles, Alex Grimaldo, even Ben Chilwell, other left backs sort of being linked with United. Alexandro, David Alaba. I mean, do you still see him as the starting fullback, or do you think that we should invest in a new one?
No, I'd stick with Luke Shaw personally. I think we've got a great backup in Brandon Williams as well. Luke can play in a back three and in a back four, which is always good. So can Brandon Williams. Luke's playing really well at the moment. He has come good again. But what Luke Shaw needs to do is keep working hard. I think that the question marks will come if his form does dip again. But I do trust him. He is playing well at the moment, and until he gives me another reason, to think otherwise, I'll stick with him and I'll back him.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely, yeah. I think that. I mean, obviously, no disrespect to Derby, but a 16th place in 16th place in the Championship. But I mean, Luke Shaw scored a very rare goal and and he was rampant down that side. So we do see that attacking side, even though he has been lauded for his defensive contributions the last 2 seasons. His attacking side has seemed to improve in the last few weeks, last few weeks of the season. And so, I mean, he has got the ability. He's not old. He's 24 years old. He's still got loads of time to develop and loads of time to show. Yeah. So I think you're absolutely right. I think unless he gives us more signs that he's unable to be the starting left back, obviously fitness is one of his biggest challenges, and injury concerns as well. He's had a really, really rough luck with that. Yeah. But I can't kind of think of a reason why we should shell out 60-70 million for a left back when we have 2 very competent and very able left backs who can show us that they are first team quality. Should we continue with the list?
So that was my third, I believe. That was my third. I'd have to, and not based on performance, because I think that we were okay on the day, but the heart, the work rate, I mean, it's probably the best game I've seen Nemanja Matic play. I'd have to say the Carabao Cup game against Man City away. In that game, Man City had a lot of the ball. We did sit back. We weren't as penetrating as we were when we played them in the league. I think we were a bit more cautious because of, obviously, we didn't want to concede. But that game for me showed everything about what our club is all about. You go away from home and you win ugly. That's what you got to do sometimes, and to do it against Man City and to get another win at the Etihad, and Nemanja Matic scoring a fantastic goal, which I think is one of the best goals we've scored this season, which isn't really talked about much, probably because it's an unlikely goal scorer. I felt really good after that game, even though we got knocked out of the cup. I just thought, okay, we're out of the cup. However, we got the win, and again, it's build on more confidence. We go again in the next game. But that game for me, again, we were turning around that corner. and there was going to be light at the end of that tunnel, because it was a very long corner that we've gone around. I think we've gone around that corner now, and I do think that we're on to better things. But, you know, although we went out of the Capital One Cup that night, Carabao Cup, I beg your pardon, getting a 1-0 win away from home when you've not played particularly well, for me, that, you know, Manchester United, we don't always play well, and we didn't always play well under Fergie, but we used to go away from home and get results, and that for me, it was a good feeling.
Absolutely. Obviously, we did do pretty much what we did a couple months earlier in the Premier League, and, you know, get the first goal in the first half, and then try and sit back and counter and let Man City do all their fancy passing and playing out from the back if they needed to, and then when it got into our kind of final third or even the half, just at them and pressing hard and trying to win the ball and obviously it didn't work out as much as we'd wanted to.
No.
But things were also not helped by the referee giving 2 yellow cards. The latter of the two completely justified, obviously, but the first one was, as Solskjaer said, not even a foul. I think he was quite angry at the fact of that, and obviously there's a great clip of him shouting at Lingard, one more time and you're off. And he did obviously take off Lingard, and that was something that we hadn't seen before from Solskjaer. That kind of, first of all, complaint at the referee and his own players. So I just wanted your opinion on both those points.
Yeah, well, I personally, when I saw that clip, I loved it. I thought, you know, a lot of people talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and they don't think he's ruthless, but you hear those who are close to him talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and, you know, you see clips from, you know, coaching in Molde. You know, he may be the baby-faced assassin, but man, that guy is ruthless, you know, and he's proven it. And I think that he's done it with, you know, getting rid of players. And I think there's players who know they're on borrowed time at the club as well. And, you know, I really like that side of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and I think that's what you need to have in your locker when, you know, you're the manager of the biggest football club in the world. And also with the Nemanja Matic situation, you know, it was disappointing that he got that second yellow. The first one was definitely not a yellow card. The second one was disappointing because I would have expected Nemanja Matic to have probably been experienced enough to not do that in that situation. But, you know, it happens. It's football. You know, I can't really knock him too much because since he's come back in the side, he's been absolutely fantastic. You know, he struggled last season. He got dropped and was ultimately, you know, a squad player. He's been brought into the side. He's delivered. He's played very, very well. And we seem to have a pretty decent spine now. He cuts the passing lines very well. He's got great vision. He played a great ball through to, who did he, off the top of my head, he got an assist in a game very recently. Great through ball. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head.
Was it Rashford?
Yes, it was. But yeah, I mean, you know, he's been fantastic for us, and I've got nothing but praise for Nemanja Matic at the moment. So getting sent off in the derby, yeah, it was a bit stupid, but getting the second yellow. But Matic has been different class for us since coming back into the side, and I think he's deserved that extra year contract extension.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he did say at the start of the season that he wasn't disappointed with the fact that he was on the bench at the beginning. Obviously, McTominay and Pogba starting in the midfield, and then Fred coming in when Pogba was injured, and then Pereira even coming in when McTominay originally became injured, and then Matic swiftly changed Solskjaer's mind. Also, Pereira's performances changed his mind too. But he did say that, well, obviously, you know, it's disappointing when you're not playing, but I accept that that's the manager's decision, but it will be on his head if things don't go well. So he did say that, and then he's changed the manager's mind, obviously, by coming in and doing very, very well. I mean, pushing McTominay out of the side in that sense, because it has been Fred and Matic the last few games, and McTominay has been on the bench for the Premier League games at least. And he has really kind of come back and shown why we bought him in the first place. And I can't sort of see any reason why we shouldn't have given him that extension, because to let someone go on a free who's got that ability, especially when Tottenham or Inter Milan were the ones that were going for him. I mean, it's not exactly a step down.
No, absolutely. I think it's important to have a player like that around you, younger players as well. The experience and that Nemanja Matic has got at that level. He, for young midfielders coming through the academy, he's a great role model. He's a top professional, and I think that in terms of learning from someone, they could learn a great deal from him. And I think even in game situations, having that experience on the field, or in the dressing room just to calm things down at halftime, he's an important figure to have around the team.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think I might be able to hazard a guess at your fifth high, but I'm gonna guess it is the last Premier League game United have played.
Yeah.
Why don't you just talk us through it?
Yeah. So, where to start really? I was actually in the States when this happened.
All right.
I was in New York City, and I went to a bar, an official supporters bar over there for Manchester United.
Oh wow!
And I couldn't believe how many Manchester United fans were in there. It was insane, because you see United fans all across the UK and whatnot, but it really hits home when you go away from home. I think it's 5,000 miles away or so, and you see hundreds of United supporters in this bar, just drinking beer, chanting all the chants that we chant, and it's kind of like, wow, reality hits home a little bit. But yeah, 2-0 against City, man. It's just, I couldn't believe it. I just had a feeling that day that we were going to win. Bruno Fernandes was incredible in that game, and I mean, the Martial goal, the quick free kick, the little bit of chemistry that's just there. You can tell that these boys enjoy playing with each other. And I think that goes a long way, enjoyment, in teams. If you're enjoying playing with someone, you're on the right wavelength, you're practicing stuff in training. You saw when we went away to, I think the boys went to Lanzarote for some warm weather training. It was Marbella, yeah. No, was it Marbella? Was it Lanzarote? It was one or the other. And they had clips on the Manchester United YouTube channel of the boys taking free kicks together, doing duo warm-up sessions together, just having a laugh in general. And it goes a long way. And you can see that Bruno and Martial have just clicked together. And that quick free kick and the execution of the volley, you can look at it and say maybe Ederson should have saved it, but take nothing away from that pass from Bruno Fernandes and the finish from Anthony Martial. Fantastic goal. Even throughout the game, we just looked comfortable. We were never really in trouble. I mean, Aguero scored a goal that was offside. We had a penalty denied and Fred booked, which was, again, I questioned VAR with that. I thought VAR should have intervened and awarded a penalty. But right throughout that game, we were comfortable. We were miles the better team. I think we've kind of got the hood on Man City at the moment. I don't think Man City want to be playing us anytime soon. I think we've got that kind of psychological, we've got psychological advantage over Manchester City at the moment. And obviously the second goal, again, as I said earlier, Rodi and Igalo's hold-up play really started to move off. Ball through from Fred was picked up by Ederson, and then I think he rushed it, really. I mean, given the time, Ederson throwing the ball out, he honestly didn't see McTominay, and, you take nothing away from McTominay's finish. That's not easy, what he's done. So to execute that, and he had a very, very good game as well.
Yeah.
that one for me, and I was gutted. I was gutted that was the last one, because I feel that had we have carried on in a normal season, we really would have kicked on and got into that top four, and probably would have won 2 trophies as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we had Spurs to come that weekend after winning 5-0 in Austria. And, on the back of those games, you just have to think that Tottenham, in the current state they were in, with injuries coming in left, right and centre, and United, back with all their centre-backs, all the defenders were still there, just missing Pogba and Rashford. I mean, it looked like a really, really positive game. I was more excited than sort of concerned. Obviously, City, they won 6 games in a row, including at the Bernabeu. So I was a little concerned. I wasn't as confident as you say you were. But I mean, straight from the off, you could see the players were ready. The mentality was there. I think the fact that Bruno brings that mentality, it says a lot about how much he brought to the club, and it is something like that. Maguire comes in, is made captain within 6 months of being at the club, and Bruno comes in. He's the one that's stepped up, taking the penalties. I think that's something that says a lot about him. His confidence and the way he takes them as well. The way he commands people on the pitch. He's telling Dan James where to go, Pereira where to go. I don't think he's played with Lingard, thank God, but. He's telling, even experienced players, he's telling Mata where to move and that as well. And that says a lot about him.
He's a born leader, isn't he? He's a natural leader. I think that, Bruno Fernandes will offer a hell of a lot to our team. And as you said, even with the experienced players, having the confidence of, sharing knowledge or trying to guide them. He'd be a great figure for the younger players coming through as well. Your James Garners, your Hannibal Medjbury, players like that are potentially going to feature in the first team consistently in a few years' time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that I think there was something that Solskjaer said after I believe the Watford game, when he was resting Bruno because they have the Europa League games or the FA Cup to come. And he said that he's always unhappy to be subbed off, and that's the kind of mentality you love. And even though he'd already contributed so much, he doesn't want to. He wants to keep playing and keep scoring, and keep getting more contributions, and that's fantastic to see and hear. And of course, like you mentioned, the McTominay finish. I mean, that is about as emphatic as you get, really. And the celebration, obviously, his 3rd goal since being back from injury, but I think it was the most important for him. And the passion from every single player. They went into the crowd and screaming, and everything was fantastic to watch. And Solskjaer as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's more togetherness in this team than there has been since Sir Alex Ferguson obviously retired back in 2013. The togetherness, it's like a family. I think everyone is in it together, and they love playing with each other.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
It's great when it's going well. Everyone wants to play, and if you notice, Rashford really wants to get fit and get back in the team. When you're playing well and you're winning games, you don't want to miss games. You want to get back on the pitch as soon as you can, and that's a great thing to see from the players at the moment.
I totally agree. You did touch on the fact that you did think that United would win 2 trophies this season, obviously the Europa League and FA Cup being, well within our grasp. But at that point, United 5-0 win away from home in a quarter-final, if I'm not mistaken, and in the quarter-final of the FA Cup against Norwich, I believe, at Carrow Road. I mean, there were some, good teams to be drawn, I guess. No disrespect, but it did show promise, and even though there were still big clubs left, would have backed United's chance against those big teams.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've been quite lucky with the draw that we've got in the FA Cup. I mean, as you touched upon, there's still some big sides in the competition, and with no disrespect to Norwich, I think we've probably got the less tricky of fixtures of what's left. We had a great result at Carrow Road this season as well. I think it's well within our grasp, and I do think we're more than capable of beating these teams. Europa League as well. There's some very good sides in that competition, but we're favourites for a reason. We're a fantastic side. I think that the boys have got great potential, and with obviously Marcus and Pogba to come back as well, we'll be even stronger again. And I think that if the season does resume and the cup competitions do resume, we're more than capable of winning 2 trophies.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, this is we've done the 5 highs and lows, but I will sort of summarize. Like you say, you do say that we are you would be confident that we would have won those 2 trophies, but obviously the Europa League would have given us Champions League football for next season, but top 4 finish was within grasp, even though Sheffield United could have displaced us with their game in hand against Aston Villa, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But there were 9 games left for United, and Chelsea still had to play Liverpool at Anfield and also Manchester City. Yeah. And so they had some tough games, and Sheffield United, obviously, if United beat them, then if Man United beat them at Old Trafford, then we'd go ahead of them as well.
Yeah.
There were promising results, and
we had some really good fixtures left as well. I think Chelsea had the more difficult, and Leicester seemed to have hit bad form as well. So personally, I was eyeballing Leicester more than Chelsea. I know that sounds optimistic, but I was eyeballing that 3rd place position. When the league was still running, and I think that I am confident that if the league does resume, I do think we'll get into that top 4.
Absolutely. Well, I mean that would be massive for signings as well. I mean, Champions League football is sort of the big thing that every player wants to play Champions League football. They want to they want to play for a big club, and they want to play in Europe against the big clubs and show what they're worth. So that would be that. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we finish?
I think I think we just got to give the manager time. There are still people out there that are very critical of him and have this obsession with other managers. I'm not going to name them because obviously people know who they are. But I think we just need to. We're on the right track. I think we need to persist with the manager. He does have a plan. Obviously, he's been questioned sometimes on substitutions, timings, but I think individually that is something that he will take on board and he will improve on. He's going to have obviously the right people around him to advise him on that as well. But I just think we stick with him, and I think he will deliver. We will come good again. We will win trophies, and I really hope that's under the current manager.
I'm almost certain that it will. I'll be confident saying that I think we will win trophies under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think especially if he's backed in the transfer windows, that has to be almost said. And I think especially if Pogba stays, I think it's looking more likely that he will than he won't. And that's obviously a massive boost. But we'll have to see what happens. Obviously, hopefully the season can finish, because do need closure on that, because there will be more controversies than not. But I'd also love to see the teams play.
It's like a lot of people on about the league at the moment, asking it to be null and void. I'll be honest with you, right? Liverpool have been the best team in the league this season, okay, and they do deserve to win the league. It hurts me to say that. I'm a realist. I don't care what any other team are doing apart from my own. So if Liverpool win the league, that's fine. If anything, it should give us more of an incentive to win the league next season, to bring that title back to Old Trafford. But for me, I want to win 2 trophies, and if it takes resuming the league, Liverpool winning the league to do that, that's fine. But I want the FA Cup and the Europa League at Old Trafford, and I want a top 4 finish.
I think it would the fact is that if Liverpool had beaten Man City, they would have won the league. And that would have been the end of it. And so you can't really kind of sit there and say, well, the league should be void, because things have already been won. Obviously,
No, exactly.
the best case scenario is that it's ended by any means necessary, and if that even means, unfortunately, stopping the other cups, which would mean that we wouldn't get trophies, it would mean that at least we get closure, and at least we do get that top four finish potentially. But that is how it is. I think they are trying to get it done by the 30th of June, but we'll see how things pan out, obviously. I'm afraid that is all we have time for this week. Thank you for listening, and thank you to Wesley for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure, mate. No problem at all. Anytime.
Excellent. If you have any topics or any questions you would like for us to discuss, then please comment below on the video or on the Twitter or Facebook posts. And if you enjoyed this, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on Twitter for more of our content.